Hello everyone, welcome to another Rangers review, a transfer special if you like, a bit of insight. We're going to get into a player that has been heavily linked with a move to Ibrox. He's been linked with a number of clubs, very highly rated. That is Kwame Poku of Peterborough United. He's decided to head for pastures new from the posh, but to give us some insight into the winger and what he is all about. It brings me great delight to say we're joined by Ashley from the Up the Poshcast podcast covering Peterborough. How's it going, Ashley?
Yeah, good. Thank you, Derek. Cool. How are you?
Yeah, fantastic. I'm loving the background there of Kwame celebrating a goal, no doubt. So yeah,
one of many from this season, that was for sure. He was certainly our top performer throughout the year.
Yeah, he was superb in the League One Team of the Year and all sorts. So no surprise to see so many clubs chasing his signature. Ashley, great to have you on. You guys have had him for a number of seasons now. He was brought initially from Colchester. When he was signed initially, could you envisage he would go on and be such a success?
It was a really weird one when he first signed because he sort of got chucked straight into the first team. And then I think that was 4 seasons ago now. And it was very apparent that was in the Championship that he wasn't ready for Championship football. So they sort of took him out of that situation. They then put him into the 21s for sort of the rest of the season. And then from the following season, when we got relegated into League One, he was then, I'm pretty sure I could say that he's been a starter for pretty much the majority of games where possible. And he's not ultimately taken the limelight until this season because he's been behind the likes of Ephron Mason-Clark, like people like Johnson, Clark, Harris, all of those sorts. But yeah, this season just gone, he's absolutely grabbed the ball by the horns and just absolutely made it his own. And ultimately, look, he's got massive clubs after him, hasn't he? Rangers, Birmingham have been linked as well. So it's the right move for him. It's a shame like he's going to leave on a free, but ultimately fantastic for those clubs that are going to sign him, right?
Yeah. Right winger, isn't he? Left-footed?
Yeah, right-footed left winger. So he likes to cut in, but he's got ability to take it down the line all the way to the byline and then drag it across for any strikers that manage to find themselves on the penalty yard, 6-yard spot. One thing that Kwame Poku is really good at, and if you look back at the free kick that he won in the Virtue Trophy final that Harley Mills scored, he is exceptional, which is what I think sets him apart from the other players that we have in the team at carrying the ball with his head up. Like that's probably his best attribute, is that the ball sticks to his foot and he does it with his head up, so he knows and he can see the full picture of what's in front of him. And ultimately, like I say, he won that free kick against Birmingham and we ended up scoring from it and going on to win. So although he wasn't like an assist maker, let's say, but he definitely played his part in that final.
Yeah, well, Darren Ferguson, obviously the manager there, what sort of formation does he play and how did it sort of suit and accommodate Kwame?
So we were in a 4-2-3-1 last season. We did move away from that when he was injured. I think it was December time that he got injured. He was sort of out for 3-4 months, did his hamstring. And there was some concerns that he may not come back and hit the ground running, but he did. And yeah, 4-2-3-1. So he was playing on that right wing. He linked up well with Ricky J. Jones, who was obviously left this week to go to St. Pauli, and then whoever it was that was playing in the central attacking midfield. But he can also shift inside into the middle. And play that cam role. And like I say, so happy to receive the ball to feet and ultimately try and make something himself. That maybe was a little bit of a downside towards the end of the season because you could see that he was like, not to badmouth him, but he was trying to create like a highlights reel ultimately because he knew that he needed those things to go and sell himself to other clubs, right? But it became a little bit frustrating towards the end. But we saw that with Mason Clark the season before, so it's nothing that we aren't not surprised by at Posh, that's for sure.
Yeah, I guess it's just a frustration. You mentioned J. Jones as well, just losing these guys for pretty much nothing. I think you'd be due, if he goes to Rangers, a sort of tribunal fee, something like that. Not a tribunal fee.
I think it's called training compensation is the one that it's used. If he stayed in England, I think it would be a tribunal fee, but because he's moving potentially across the border, I think that it's going to be a training compensation, like we say. So it's better than a kick in the teeth, isn't it? But ultimately, if we'd have sold him in January, if he was fit, or sold him last summer, he'd have probably gone for 3-4 million, similar to what Mason Clark did, plus all of the add-ons that you get from that. So, look, fantastic footballer. There's no other way to describe Kwame Poku. I'm sure that it'll be great.
Yeah. You mentioned there he had a hamstring problem. What has his injury record been like at the club? Is it a rarity that he's out? Is he pretty robust, or is he someone that picks up little niggles here and there?
When he's the problem is because he is so good with the ball at feet. There's been times this season where you've seen 3-4 defenders on him trying to pin him down. Is that he's not the most physical of players. And the only other sort of 3 months out with the hamstring. The only other time that I can remember being injured was 2 seasons ago now, where he was out for sort of like the month of February. I can't remember exactly what that injury was. But other than that, I wouldn't say that he's got injury issues as such. It was just purely, we actually had a massive injury issue at Posh this season with hamstrings. Like we had 5 or 6 players just completely do their hamstrings and be out for months at a time. So it wasn't, I don't think it was an isolated injury to Kwame Poku. I think it was maybe something that they were doing in the strength and conditioning. So he's had the surgery. He's got this bionic hamstring in there now, let's say, and he looked like he's ready to go and carried us towards the end of the season, like I say.
I've seen obviously the owner, Darren McAntony, Barry Fry, both think that he's got the potential to play in the Premier League one day and really set the heather alight there. Do you go along with that? I mean, he's 23 now. Do you think he's got the potential to play at the top level?
Yes, is the short answer. I think that when I compare the potential moves to Birmingham versus Rangers, I think that the Rangers one is a no-brainer for me. Removing the compensation payment out of it, I think that going to Rangers would be very smart, wouldn't it? Like ultimately, they're competing every single week. They're winning every week. They're a successful team. You know, they've got European football to play in. So that's only going to put more eyes on him. Like when I think about watching Rangers, they're on pretty much every week on TV, aren't they? So there's a national audience, there's then a global audience. So I think that he's probably still 2 or 3 years away from Premier League quality, but that's why he's making that sort of intermediary move, isn't he? But somebody like Rangers, somebody like Birmingham to make that step up, have that better coaching, have the facilities and all that sort of stuff, and then hopefully make another move onto the Premier League in the future.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Do you think a team like Rangers, who will be very possession heavy, certainly now, well, they were before, but now that Russell Martin's in there, do you think a team with a lot of the ball will suit someone like Kwame up against teams that will, I think there's a lot of teams that Rangers come up against it in Scotland that try and camp in and make life difficult. Do you think Kwame will revel like that?
Yeah, look, Russell Martin's a great manager, isn't he? And when I saw that he'd signed for Rangers, I was delighted for that. He's an ex-Posh player himself.
Yeah.
And Poku has come from a possession-based team in Posh. We've played it sort of the last 2.5 seasons. So it won't be anything new. Yes, it may be slightly more intense. I think I read an article from Russell Martin that said that the first 2 or 3 months are really difficult and tough as fans as well. But once you get through that first period, you're then flying, aren't you? And we saw it with Southampton and Swansea, didn't we, in the way that you managed there. So I don't think that Poku would have any issues stepping into a possession-based team. I also don't think that he would have any issues in those against those teams that play low blocks because, like I say, he's so confident with the ball at feet, and it's never more than sort of like 30 sort of centimeters, a foot away from his foot. And he has the ability to, another good thing that he's really good at is his acceleration. He's not the fastest, but his acceleration is really good.
Yeah,
dropping the ball off, making a run around a defender, and then receiving the ball like in just a simple 1-2 is something that we've seen many a time at Posh, and something that ultimately is what he's going to need to utilise to break down low block defences.
Good stuff. And of course, I mean, he's played at Peterborough. You mentioned their championship in League One level. Can you see him? Could you see him really making that step up, if you like? Don't want to be disparaging to Peterborough, but going to a team like Rangers where, I mean, the expectation levels, the demands and all that are placed on you, does he have the mentality to cope with that, do you think, Ashley?
Yes, is the easy answer. I think he's somebody that's ready-made, and that's sort of the way that we produce them at Peterborough, is that when they are going on to their next club, yes, we're not the big glamorous, we're sort of 9,000 average a week. We're preparing these players to go and play in front of 30, 40, 50,000. Just look at Ivan Toney, Harrison Burrows, Ephron Mason-Clark. They're probably the 3 most recent, I would say. Even somebody like Joe Ward that left on a free a couple of seasons back, he went to Derby. He was then playing in front of 30,000 people. So I think that mentality-wise, he won't have an issue. I think that actually he's probably one that would thrive under the pressure of a 50,000 capacity Ibrox, or sort of screaming him to get down the line and get an attacker in a difficult game. And you think about old firm derbies, you always want that special moment, don't you? And even when I think back to like our special moments this season, we beat Cambridge, our local rivals, 3-1. Poku got a hat-trick in that. So that to us is a big game, isn't it? Right? To your average football fan, you think, oh, it's just a little Cambridgeshire derby. It's not massive, but he stepped up to the plate for that, and I'm just so confident that he's ready to step up to whichever team that he makes, whether that be in England or abroad or in Scotland.
Yeah, and I've seen that. I mean, Barry Fry has seen commenting saying that the fans would love him if he went up to Ibrox. Is he a well liked guy as well? Is he good with the fans and things like that, Ashley?
It's always a really difficult one with the posh players. They're very well protected by our media team, I would say, and they're not like Poku's not like a massively outgoing player. Like we've got people like Malik Mothersill who have had spats between fans and stuff on social media. We've signed Cairo Lisby, who is the son of I can't remember his name, Lisby, who played for Charlton. He's very active on social media. Kwame Poku is not that player, but he's never going to ignore a fan that he walks past. And obviously, with the way that you sort of the players walk out of reception and then they've got to walk past fans to get to the car park, same as to and from. So he's never somebody that would just put his head down and ignore fans. And ultimately, that may be a slight culture change that he has, in that he is going to be a star player in a big team in Scotland, right?
Yeah. You mentioned there, I mean, that could have sold him in January for 2-3 million quid. Do you think he's got the potential, if he does well at Rangers, they could make a decent profit on him, sell him for big money?
Yes. It's a really difficult one, isn't it? Without knowing what a player would have gone for. Like, ultimately, he was injured in January, so nobody was ever going to buy him. I know there was whispers of, is somebody going to try and get him now, potentially loan him back so that they've got him? That never materialised. It's really difficult knowing or not knowing what he would have gone for. Like, I could have said he probably could have gone up to 5 million if somebody really wanted him and he had a little bit longer left on his contract. So you would say that probably his next move, if he does continue on the trajectory that he's had so far, you'd be looking at anywhere probably 15 to 20 million for somebody to sign him. He just needs to back up the numbers that he's had for Posh this season. He needs to do that again, sort of 2-3 seasons running for his next club. So I think that the opportunity is there for him to do that. It's just a case of whether he wants to grab it with two hands. But I don't think that there's any concerns in terms of, is he going to struggle? I think that he's somebody that's got the ability and he just needs to know how to implement that ability against better defenders. Yeah.
Before we let you go, how are Posh going to get on next season? I know the one the synonymous now with the EFL trophy down there. That was the highlight of this season. But ultimately, I think that the league was a disappointing season all round. He's going to push for playoffs and beyond, perhaps, next season?
Do you want the honest answer or do you want the positive answer? So, look, I'd love to go back to back in the Virtue Trophy and win it 3 times in a row. We would then become the team that's won it the most and the only team, like we're the only team to win it back to back.
Yeah.
We would then obviously be the only team to win it 3 times in a row. I would love that. In terms of the league, it's really difficult. When we talk about Poku himself, I worked out on one of our podcasts recently that we did that I think that he won us 6 points himself solely by winning goals or winning assists. Without those 6 points, we'd have got relegated. Now, Ricky J. Jones, people will argue whether he's one of our best players. Poku's gone, Hector Cipriano. We've lost 3 first-teamers on free transfers this season or this summer. That means that ultimately the way that we work is money comes in and then we find the replacements with that money and allocate it to clear debts and stuff. So I'm concerned, but I want to be positive and say that we're not going to get relegated, but it would be absolute prediction suicide to say we're going to get playoffs this season, because there's just massive teams that, especially like teams like Plymouth that have come down, they've obviously looking like they've got investment coming in. Cardiff have got themselves a new manager. Luton have obviously gone back-to-back relegations, but there's some big teams in League One, and I don't think that Posh are going to be there. I think that we'd probably be, it sounds really harsh, I think we'd have probably been better off getting relegated last season, having that full reset in a sense, and then shining up. Whereas this season, there's every chance. I say that I want to be positive, but it's you can say that it's really difficult to say that we're not going to get relegated this season, because we've signed 2 players so far. Are they going to set the world alight straight off the bat? That's not the way it works at Posh. As I've said previously when we recorded, is that the 3 that have left this year were the star players. Normally you would know who the star players are going to be, but it now looks like the star players we're potentially going to have to sell because we haven't got any money. So the likes of Harley Mills, Archie Collins, Malik Mothersill, they're probably the 3 assets I would say that we've got. If we need to get money in and sell those, then we're left with ultimately players that are from League Two and the National League, which look, they may well step up and prove everybody wrong. But yeah, like I say, it's difficult to be confident at the moment.
Yeah, well, I wish you guys all the best. I've been down to London Road a few times, and always treated well down there. So hopefully you have a decent campaign next year. But it's been great having you on, Ashley. So thank you very much for giving us some insight into Kwame Poku. It certainly looks like he would excite if he moves up to Glasgow, or I guess anywhere. He's one of those sort of entertaining players. So thank you for coming on.
No, thanks for having me, Derek. Thank you.
There you go, folks. Hopefully you enjoyed that bit of insight into Kwame Poku. And we'll speak to you later on. Bye for now.